Randy Melo Smith, known as Gospel or Glory Melo. He's 30 years old. He graduated from Spingarn High School and raised in Deanwood, Northeast. Melo is a DC and fire EMS government employee for 11 years as a community outreach coordinator. He's been in ministry since 2011. He also served as the minister in training and outreach at Alma Bearer Video Ministry at Cathedral of Christ, Cathedral of Praise and Outreach, Director of the House of Hope. He's a Christian hip-hop artist for 6 years. He has many accolades and awards, Best Gospel Group of the Year. 2017, he was honored and recognized by the Coalition for the Homeless in D.C. Also in that year, he was honored as a Metro Distinguished Man Award and Certificate of Recognition. And in 2018, he won the Underground Gospel Rap City Artist of the Year. One thing I like about Melo, I met Melo maybe about 3 years ago. We did a Stop the Violence rally up in Uptown, up in Columbia Heights. And one thing I love about Melo is that Melo is a firm believer who got bars and who raps, but he also is not afraid to come into the community. He's not just looking for accolades. He's not just kind of hiding in the church walls, right? And so what we're challenging ourselves is not just to hide in the church and just hide in the walls. And so I want you to put your hands together and welcome my man all the way from Deanwood. So tonight, we wanted to talk a little bit about this idea. I've heard part of y'all's story. I heard the journey. I've seen some of that, and I'm like, I think it's a good thing that young people kind of hear your stories, right, and to see how God has brought you from just a mighty long way. As Grandma used to say, God brought us from a mighty long way. But just that life without Christ and kind of living on your own and on your own terms and being who God has created you to be. Tell us a little bit about your story and who you are outside of the bio.
Okay. So we keep it real. Y'all seem like a real group, a little bit. Mostly, sometimes. Depending on who you're around. I got it. I had 5 kids. My oldest is 21, my youngest is 7. Being in the street when I was 15, I used to run away. I grew up uptown. My parents had a whole lot of money. I didn't like it. I didn't have a whole lot of money. They had a whole lot of money. So I didn't like having a whole lot of money. I was more like, what's her name? Nunu or ATL?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. His parents got a lot of money, but I'd rather be in the hood with everybody else. It's just fun, whatever. So I was smoking weed, chilling, stealing cars. Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah, you think that's funny?
No, not stealing cars.
I'm just saying. Just because it is what it is, I felt like smoking relaxed my mind. I felt like it took me to another place. However, it made me feel like it took me away from praying. It was like when I should have been praying, I was smoking. And what I mean by that is now, when I pray, these are the times where I know I wouldn't be smoking. So it's like when you're chilling, talking to yourself, going through all the emotions by yourself, you smoking, you with your mans in them, with your folks, blah, 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 you smoking. But now, I'm talking to God on a one-on-one. It's a different type of relationship. And I teach my kids the same thing. I teach them that because prayer changed my life. That's my personal story. It may not be your story because you may not be praying as diligently or as often as I was praying. But I began to write down things that I needed from God, and I started to pray about it. And then I realized that I could check them off my list. It was interesting that prayer allowed me to go places that we didn't. And we was a restriction. But church was a restriction. Because for me, church was just about mimicking the other people that went to church. And they weren't necessarily living right. So now I'm mimicking somebody that could be living wrong because I think that they're living right. So for me, church was a restriction because everybody has rules, like your parents. You're in your parents' house or your folks' house, whoever you stay with, there are restrictions there. So for me, it's more like being like Christ. Christ wasn't known for being sitting in the church. He wasn't a deacon. He wasn't restricted to being one thing in the church. Let me say it like that. He taught us that we are the church as individuals, the same way you all are the community. We got to translate that into understanding we are the body of Christ. We are the church. So when we step out in the community, you representing your set, wherever you're from, your neighborhood. But when you know who you are in God, that's who you rep. Like I'm an ambassador for heaven. That's my job. But I'm here to let you know that it takes you to be real to know who you really are. You can't be tiptoeing around someone, I ain't never smoked weed, I ain't never did this, I ain't never did that. No, I was out there doing everything I wanted to do. I was having sex out of wedlock, Slim was cute, he was cute. I mean, all my kids got the same father, but I mean, that's just a blessing. I was blessed not to catch nothing because I should have had something. That's just being real. You know, you go out here and see somebody you think you want to be with. Like I tell my 21-year-old son, just because she cute don't mean she don't have nothing. And just because a female you get on your knees and put your mouth on a male don't mean you won't get nothing. So don't think that just because you're not having sex, laying on your back, because I'm not saying nothing y'all don't already talk about. Just because you're not laying on your back don't mean you might not get up with something. Just because you're not in somebody's bed or in their house don't mean you might not detrimentally feel something from that person that you was only with for a couple of days. Those are called strongholds and soul ties. Those things linger for years. But I lost my father in 2014 and I thought I was going to lose my mind and I didn't because I had been praying about it. And people thought I was crazy when I had a dream of my father's death. Nobody would listen to me. Oh my God, don't say that about your father, that's not nice. But I held on to what I saw. There were some very specific things in that dream that ended up coming to pass when my father did die. So much so me and my mother was beefing. I couldn't be around her after my father died. But I know that was God. Why? Because that dream that I had of him dying. On the day of my daddy's funeral, of course I went, and everything that I saw in my dream was already there. Down to what he was going to have on in the casket. I had already seen it 3 years earlier. My point for letting you all know that is sometimes people gonna think you crazy. They really gonna, especially when you decide I ain't living like that no more, they think you crazy. So what? Let them think you crazy. You gotta know what you know. And I understand that I had to step back from my mother during that time for me to be able to see that what God showed me was real. If I had been close to my mother at that time, I wouldn't have been planning the funeral. I would have told her what I wanted my father to be in because I had already seen it. But God kept me distant so that I could understand what he showed me was what was going to come to pass. And I wrote a book, and one of the chapters in my book is called Slingshot Season. And slingshot season is where you're being pulled back from everything. A slingshot, you're in a harness. A slingshot is a harness. You put something in the harness and you pull it back and you release it. I feel like God takes us through slingshot season where he puts us in his harness. He pulls us back from friends, family, everybody we was depending on, the church folks that we thought was right, the way we learned about God, holidays, Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's. We get pulled back from everything where it doesn't feel the same anymore. And then God thrusts us into a different environment, a community of people like Ray and everybody that's here. He thrusts us into a different community and environment that makes us think. And it's not that we have to doubt ourselves, it just makes us think. And that's what having a relationship with God is all about, thinking. It's not about just doing. Because most people just think God is a routine. God is not a routine. Just like certain things irk me about church, I'm ranting. But certain things irk me about church, like every Easter and every Christmas, they pretty much saying the same thing in the church. The same thing. I don't feel like that because the Bible says God makes all things new. So it should always be something new and relevant that's being spoken about in the church. That bothers me for people like you all. You have everything that you go through is already in the Bible. They don't want to talk about homosexuality in the church, but it's in the Bible. It's there. Smoking in the Bible, drinking, getting butt naked, having sex with family members, it's in the Bible. Lot, his daughters, nasty. It's a lot of things in the Bible that y'all are already living, but the world and church ain't gonna tell y'all that, so y'all feel restricted and isolated. But that's what a relationship with God is all about outside of church. I grew up saying grace. That was all the prayer I had. You better pray over your food. That's it.
The food that's killing us, right?
Yeah. Right now.
Lord, praying for these children right now.
I'm trying to tell you, sir is with me. So it's just like for me, getting closer to God was knowing and understanding who I was. Period. I don't care what nobody else has to say about it. I'm not really concerned. Me and my mother not even on the same page about what she believes. She still believes she can just pray over food. Tell you go on and pray about it. And no, Mom, no. It's like people dying left and right and you still in the house praying over your sandwich. It's more to to life than yourself. Everybody in here was created for something and somebody else, and you have no idea who that person is because most of you probably haven't met that person or come to understand who you are and who you will help in life. So it's like things that you all see and experience right now, you're gonna carry it with you. You might not even see it or use it right now, but you're gonna carry it with you. So y'all just gotta stay positive. Yeah, I gotta stay positive. I'm gonna spit this piece and y'all gonna understand what I'm saying. But yeah, that's all you, Big Melo. Melo.
I was born and raised in D.C. Been in D.C. for 30 years. Been in Christ for 6 years. I want to tell y'all, there's no love in the streets. Even when it feel good and make you climax, still ain't no love. But yeah, I was born and raised around Dinglewood, 48 place in Sheriff Road to be exact, 1015. 48. I was still sitting right there in the corner, right next to a church. If y'all familiar with Dinglewood, I think I counted about like 40 churches on Sheriff Road, from Levy Hannibals to Eastern Ave. About 40 churches. I grew up next door to a church. Never stepped foot in. My parents never stepped foot in. I didn't start going to church until 6 years ago. I'm 30. Yeah, so about 24 years old, that's when I gave my life to Christ. But it took a while. First of all, I didn't even know who God was. How can I give my life to somebody that I don't even know who you are? It's crazy. The streets ain't really going to tell you who he is. They going to tell you what they want to hear because they want to use you to their advantage. Like she said, stealing cars ain't nothing new. Y'all probably can't steal cars these days because of all this technology. Y'all got carjacked. Y'all got to use guns and all this stuff. Not y'all, but we have to use guns and all this other stuff.
Man, they standing outside the main car.
Right. On the field.
You do that now, all right.
You gonna carjack somebody today, and they gonna find the car tomorrow. But that's a whole different story. I'm known to sell drugs, easy money, fast life. Got locked up twice in 2007. Well, let me rewind. Like I said, I went to Spring-On. Matter of fact, I went to ID, public charter school, because I thought charter schools meant something. And it was only 2 blocks from my house. I got more conflict in the charter school than I did a public school. I got kicked out. I had to go to my neighborhood school. And this is the trick about my neighborhood. If you live on this side of 49th Street, your neighborhood school was Spring-On. If you live on this side of 49th Street, your neighborhood school was Woodson. So that's what happened. I lived on this side. So all 50 of my friends went to Woodson. So little old me was on the X2 every morning going to Spring-On by myself. I know y'all familiar with hoods, Kenilworth, and anything, all that stuff. And it's just me. You got Huntwood and all these other neighborhoods. But God kept me. Because of my personality and who I am, I'm able to be cool with everybody. I don't go to school looking for stuff. Plus, I was still selling a little something. But I was still cool, you know what I'm saying? I didn't take school serious at all. I'm gonna be first. I hate going to school. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to college. But I'm gonna tell y'all why. I'm gonna tell y'all why.
Kids.
The only thing that motivated me to graduate was women. Only reason I went to school was
Right.
women.
It was a dating game.
Only women. Women motivated me. I never even looked school. I went to school every day. one. This is
You went to school every day.
every day.
Oh, you had to make that.
Every day. I ain't for that for the
You
women.
had clients.
If I'm a, I'm coming. Wall Street was
It's
a
okay,
strip.
because he went to school every day too.
Easy money.
Yeah.
Just don't put them being fly for your male friend. If you want to be fly, who you going to be in front of? Your opposite sex, right? So that was my motivation. And at this time, when I went to Spring On, they were just switching the school from opening in September, Labor Day, to like August. So this is something new. This is like 04. I sat in the first day of school, you know, everybody went to the auditorium. And I'm like, dang, there's only like 10 people here. What's going on? They was having like some type of presentation. They'll have different teachers come up and be like, well, I'm such and such, I do whatever, chemistry or whatever. So this guy come up and he was like, yeah, I do auto body collision teaching. So I'm like, what's auto body collision? Like, what is that? And then like, anybody want to sign up for it, meet me in the back of the auditorium. So I'm like, I don't know what it is, let me just sign my name up. I'm trying to tell you, that was the highlight of my life. That's when I started seeing my purpose. Because once I signed up for that class, not only we've been to school a half a day, at 12 o'clock we was at the Department of Public Works fixing their vehicles. And I'm learning trade and working at the same time, but volunteering. They saw my work ethic. And about 6 months after I graduated, I got hired for the government.
Me too.
Like, I've been in the government all my life.
God is sweet.
For real.
That's what's up.
And y'all heard what I said, right? On the auditorium and nobody was in there. I'm the only one out of that whole class that graduated and got the government job. Because nobody was interested in learning trades or doing something different. 11 years later, still here. Making pretty good money too.
Right, me too.
For doing a little bit of nothing. A little bit of nothing. Look, I'm gonna say this. Look.
I'm not going to need a job.
Everybody.
I need clean urines on site.
You need what?
Clean pee.
Yeah!
On site, I do security.
Look.
Give me a bottle.
Listen, y'all. I told y'all I got time for the government, right? Making good money. Why the hell would I still want to be in the streets? That's what I was still trying to be in the streets. No, I didn't get fired. I got locked up.
So you got fired?
No, I didn't get fired. I'm still here.
Great.
Y'all not listening. I'm trying to share my story with y'all. Like, literally. I tell you, God is real. Like, I could have charged out Fairfax, Virginia. Yeah, I should still be here, right? I should still be here.
Sitting in there with just the Bible and the Lord.
One good thing about Virginia Commonwealth is that you get to go see a commissioner. Before you go to court and all that stuff, you go down in the basement and they judge you based on what you look like. Like, it's a sheet they read. Your history, your background, how many kids you have, what school you went to. They asked me all these questions. They asked me this question, they were like, why are you here? They were like, you got a job? Like, yeah, I work for the government. They're like, and you hanging with them? Y'all got locked up together and you're the only one with a government job? Oh, you could post bond. The rest of them got stay. Straight like that, because I had a job. And they had, it was $2,500, you had to put down like 10%, so like $250. $250.
Oh yeah, we got it. We got it.
You ain't out there. People from around my way, they have the same tattoos. I just got one a couple years ago that say my name. But they take a picture of your tattoos and everything in jail. And they, no matter if you get a tattoo that look and resembles his tattoo, they gonna put y'all together. And y'all might not even know each other. For real. So what he do, they're looking at you and waiting for you to do it. Or they watching you for you. You know what I'm saying? So they like, you don't fit in. Y'all got the same tattoo. I didn't even have no tattoos. Speed it up. It's a long testimony. Speed it up. I got locked up again. I'm done for later. Yeah, I am. This time I had spent 5 days in DC jail. Them 5 days feel like 40 years. They put you in the cell big as this platform. And tell you to brush your teeth and they don't give you a toothbrush. They tell you wipe your butt, they don't give you nothing to wipe your butt with. No, I'm dead serious.
Hey, I got one toy.
I'm dead serious.
Still. One phone.
Your bed right here and your toilet right here.
And you got one.
And you sure in the cell?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
On a bunk bed.
Yeah. So y'all see them people that get out of jail, they must like it. Don't need to drop the soap. The bed right here.
Don't take a shower.
So let me just jump in real quick. So, beginning of the year, we talked about SMART goals, right? Some of my guys in here should be able to stand up and tell us what the acronym for SMART is, but I'm not going to put them on the spot right now. We also talked about the company we keep, right? And let me just